In this video, we're going to be doing a dimensional analysis where we are converting some units. So what we're doing in these three different sample problems are we are taking one specific unit and converting it into the new one. So basically, each of the problems have the same strategy, which is basically finding different conversions that have a ratio of 1 until you get into your particular unit. So let's go ahead and do this first one a little bit more slowly. But we're starting out with 270 ounces, and then we want to convert to kilograms. Okay, when you do this, as I said before, you are multiplying by ratios that are equal to 1, because if you multiply anything by 1, you're not actually changing the value of it. Now, if we are taking a look at this table over here, the first thing I do is I sort of like lightly map out which direction I'm headed until I end up in the unit that I'm looking for. So I'm starting out in ounces, and then I want to end up in kilograms. So I'm going to take a look at my conversions over here, and I see ounces right over here, and I actually don't see it anywhere else. Okay, so I'm going to go from ounces to pounds, and then now I have a few different options. I have pounds over here, and I have pounds up here. This one is going to take me to tons, and this one over here could take me to grams or kilograms, and I want to end up in kilograms, so that works out. Okay, so after I've lightly mapped out my plan in my head, I'm going to go ahead and set up those ratios. The way I'm going to set them up is I want to make sure I cancel out the previous unit and then change it into the new one. The way I do that is I always start in the denominator and then go up to the numerator. So the first conversion I'm using is 16 ounces into 1 pound. So we have 16 ounces, and then bring it up here into 1 pound. That means the ounces are going to cancel out, and we're going to be in pounds. Now the next one I'm going to do the same exact thing, set up a ratio that's equal to 1, and then go from the denominator up top to the numerator. So I actually only have one more. I have this top conversion over here, my mass and weight box, and I have 2.205 pounds, and then that equals 1 kilogram. So my pounds are going to cancel, and then the only units that's left is kilograms, which is actually the end goal. Now, how to get the final number is pretty simple. I would just follow this idea, which I'm going to take everything in my numerator up top and multiply it all the way across. So 270 times 1 is pretty easy. That comes out to 270. And then I'm going to multiply everything across in the bottom. So I'm going to take 16 times 2.205, and that's going to give me about 35.28. And then I'm going to divide these two, and then that's going to give me my answer, which is 7.65 kilograms. So really the three main strategies I use is, number one, I kind of map out my plan so I know which direction I'm heading, so I don't end up somewhere in the middle where I don't want to be and I'm having trouble making that conversion. So I'll kind of lightly map that out first. And then number two, I'm going to find ratios that are equal to 1, which is basically any of these because these are all equivalent to each other. So when you put them on top of each other, that's a ratio that's equal to 1. And then I always go from bottom to the top to make sure that my old units cancel out, like ounces and then pounds, and then only end up with the final unit that I want to be in, which would be kilograms. And then that's basically it. Once you get to the mathematical part, I would just say multiply everything across in the numerator, get that number, multiply everything across in the denominator, get that number, divide them, and then you get your final answer. All right, so if you want to try out the second and third problem, you can go ahead and pause the video in a second here. This one is from miles to inches, which you can use this length box over here for some different conversions. And then for the last one, from year into seconds, I assume those are different ratios that you're familiar with, like something from hours to minutes and minutes to seconds. So if you want to give those two a try, go ahead and pause the video now. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and do that second one. I'm going to go from miles to inches. So we're going to go ahead and start off in miles. And then I'm going to go ahead and map out my plan. I have miles over here, 0.621371 miles. And I don't see it anywhere else besides there. So I'm definitely going to use this one, and I have the option to go from meters or kilometers. I'm going to go ahead and go to meters because meters is a smaller unit, so that seems to make sense to me. And then I'm going to take a look up here, and then I have meters into inches. Okay, so I have my plan mapped out, so I'm going to go ahead and set up those ratios and then calculate my 2 miles in inches. Okay, so I went ahead and completed the problem. I went from miles to meters using this conversion over here. I just rounded off to 0.62. 0.62 miles equals 1,000 meters. I cancel out my miles, end up in meters. And then I use my meters to inches conversion over here. The 39.7 inches equals 1 meter. So I had 1 meter on the bottom, so I could cancel out my meters and then end up in inches. As you could see, the only unit that didn't get canceled out is inches, which is good, so that my final solution is going to end up in inches. I multiplied across the top, which gave me a fairly large number of 79,400, and then 0.62 times 1 on the bottom, which gave me a really small number, divided the two, and then I got my final answer. Okay, now for the last one, like I said, we are working with a bunch of conversions that you are very likely familiar with. So there is no, box of different equivalents or things that you can convert with. So let's go ahead and work this one through. We have 1 year, and then we can slowly work our way through from larger units into smaller units until we eventually end up in seconds. So let's go ahead and set this one up. All right, so I used 4 different ratios for this one. I went from 1 year to 365 days, 365 days to 1 day, and 1 day to 24 hours, 1 hour to 60 minutes, and then 1 minute. Whoops, the minutes got canceled out here. And then again, we want to make sure everything cancels except our final one that's in seconds. And then I got 3.15 times 10 to the 7th, which you could probably leave it in scientific notation if you would like, and that would be your answer. But this is the entire thing written out, which is 31,536,000 seconds per year. So again, just to recap, you want to find a bunch of different things that are equivalent to each other so that you can make some conversions like 16 ounces to 1 pound or from 1 day to 24 hours. You just want to find 2 things that are equivalent to each other. As I said, that's a ratio that is equivalent to 1, so you're not changing the actual value of the number. So when you see 128,065 inches, is the number different than the 2 here? Yes, but they're measuring the same exact distance. Therefore, they are equivalent lengths, although the numerical values don't match up exactly. So that's what I mean by not changing the actual value of it. And then once you do that, you find a bunch of different ratios that you can work with so that you can keep on canceling things out and have the ending unit that you are looking for, such as kilograms for the first one. And then once you multiply everything across the top, you have a single number for your numerator, and you multiply everything across the bottom, then you have a single number for your denominator. Divide those two, and then you're going to end up with your final solution. So I hope that was helpful in helping you do some dimensional analysis. Thank you for watching and listening.